On the evening of October 23, 1998, the town of Millhaven was swallowed in a steady drizzle that blurred the glow of streetlights and left the roads slick and empty. Emily Harris, a 22-year-old waitress, ended her late shift at Rose's Diner just after 11:15 p.m. She had worked extra hours to cover for a coworker, and as she stepped outside, she wrapped her coat tightly around herself, opened her bright red umbrella, and began the short walk toward her apartment. It was a route she knew well, 6 blocks through quiet residential streets where houses sat dark and silent. For Emily, it was routine. She often walked alone, and nothing in her small town ever seemed dangerous enough to make her think twice. That night, however, something felt strangely different. Neighbors later recalled the heavy air, the way the fog clung to the ground, and the eerie emptiness of the streets. Emily was seen by 2 people, an elderly man glancing from his porch and a teenager cycling home. Each remembered her umbrella glowing like a marker in the rain. But just a few blocks from her apartment, her presence seemed to vanish completely. When she didn't show up at her apartment the next morning, her absence was first dismissed as a possible overnight stay with a friend. But by the following evening, concern grew. Police began to retrace her steps, and within hours, they discovered her umbrella abandoned in a gutter along Maple Street. It was snapped in two, the fabric torn, as though crushed with deliberate force. That detail turned a missing persons report into something far more sinister. Emily's walk home should have lasted 10 minutes at most. Somewhere along that brief journey, something happened, something that would mark the beginning of a mystery that still chills the town decades later. The search for Emily Harris quickly became the largest investigation Millhaven had ever seen. Officers, volunteers, and even firefighters joined together, combing through every alley, field, and wooded patch in town. Dogs were brought in, their noses pressed to the ground, but the rain had already washed away much of the scent. Every day the search grew more desperate, and every night the community waited for news that never came. The turning point arrived 1 week later, when a deputy stumbled across Emily's backpack on the edge of the Blackwood Woods, a dense forest about 3 miles from her route home. The discovery gave investigators their first real clue, but also raised new and disturbing questions. The backpack appeared undisturbed. Inside, Emily's wallet was still full of cash, her keys were tucked neatly in the side pocket, and her notebook lay on top, its cover damp from the weather. The notebook caught immediate attention. Emily was known for writing poems and short stories, and most of the pages were filled with her neat handwriting. But one sheet, torn sharply from the spine, was missing. No one knew if it had been removed by Emily herself or by someone else. Near the backpack, muddy tire tracks cut through the soft ground, as if a vehicle had stopped briefly before moving on. Investigators photographed the impressions, but heavy rain made them nearly useless, the ridges too blurred to identify the make or model of the vehicle. The lack of fingerprints only deepened the frustration. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, and no trace of Emily. The scene looked almost staged, as though the backpack had been placed there deliberately. Instead of leading to answers, the evidence seemed to open more doors to unsettling possibilities, leaving investigators trapped in uncertainty. 3 months after Emily's disappearance, winter had begun to loosen its grip on Millhaven. The snow was melting, and hunters were once again entering the forest that surrounded the town. On a gray January morning, a man tracking deer stumbled upon something half buried beneath damp leaves and shallow soil. At first, he thought it was discarded clothing, but as he brushed away the earth, the truth became horrifyingly clear. Police were immediately called, and within hours the area was sealed off. A shallow grave had been uncovered, containing fragments of clothing and human remains. The clothes were instantly recognizable to investigators. They matched the description of what Emily had been wearing on the night she vanished: a blue sweater, dark jeans, and a pair of white sneakers. The discovery seemed to confirm everyone's worst fears. But when forensic testing was completed, the results sent the case spiraling in a completely unexpected direction. The remains were not Emily's. Instead, they belonged to another young woman, estimated to be between 20 and 25 years old. She had never been reported missing in the surrounding counties, and no one came forward to identify her. This revelation stunned the community. For weeks, people had prepared themselves to finally have closure about Emily, only to learn that another mystery had been unearthed. Investigators faced a chilling new reality. There was now not just one victim but two. Who was this unidentified woman, and how did she end up buried in the same forest where Emily's backpack had been found? The timing and location seemed too close to be a coincidence. Some investigators whispered about a hidden pattern, a predator who had claimed more than one life. Yet with no name, no history, and no clear connection, the unidentified woman's story remained a haunting question mark. As the investigation dragged on, the case began to unravel into a web of unsettling theories. Without clear evidence, speculation filled the silence. Some residents believed Emily had been watched for weeks before she vanished. She often walked home late at night, her bright red umbrella and predictable routine making her an easy target. Several co-workers mentioned she sometimes felt uneasy, glancing over her shoulder as though sensing someone nearby. Investigators considered the possibility of a stalker, someone who had learned her schedule and waited for the perfect opportunity. Another theory centered around a truck driver frequently seen near Rose's diner. Regulars remembered a man in his 40s who stopped by almost every night, ordering coffee and sitting alone for hours. His rig was often parked along the main road, facing the route Emily usually walked. He disappeared from town soon after Emily went missing, which fueled suspicion, but no record of his identity was ever confirmed. Authorities tried to track him down, but found nothing concrete, no registration, no trace of employment that matched. It was as if he had vanished with the rain. The unidentified woman from the shallow grave deepened the mystery further. The proximity to Emily's last known location led many to believe a serial predator might have been operating in the area. Some suggested that the grave was meant for Emily, and that the unknown woman had been an earlier victim. Others speculated the reverse, that Emily had stumbled upon something she wasn't supposed to see, and was silenced to keep the truth hidden. Each theory added another layer of fear to Millhaven, where locked doors and drawn curtains became a nightly routine. Despite endless interviews and countless dead ends, the case produced no arrests, only questions that seemed to multiply with time. Years slipped by, and the case of Emily Harris became less a search for answers and more shadow that loomed over Millhaven. Her parents kept her small apartment exactly as she had left it, a shrine frozen in time. The bed remained neatly made, her books lined on the shelf, and her favorite sweater draped over the chair. Each day her mother opened the curtains, hoping against reason that Emily might walk through the door again. The pain of not knowing consumed them more than any truth ever could. The unidentified woman discovered in the forest was laid to rest under the name Jane Doe, her grave marked only with a plain headstone. Despite national databases and repeated attempts at identification, no family ever came forward. She became a symbol of the forgotten, a reminder that some lives vanish without recognition or justice. Local residents placed flowers on her grave, though none knew who she truly was. The unanswered question of her identity haunted investigators, as if she carried the key to the entire mystery, but remained silent beneath the soil. Over the years, the case was reopened multiple times. Advances in forensic technology brought hope, but each re-examination ended in disappointment. DNA collected from the umbrella and backpack was too degraded to provide results. The tire tracks, the missing notebook page, the rumors about the truck driver, all remained frustratingly inconclusive. With every failed lead, the case slipped further into the cold archives. Emily's disappearance and the nameless woman's death left behind a legacy of fear and sorrow. For Millhaven, the story became a cautionary tale whispered to new generations. The haunting truth lingers, justice did not arrive, and two women remain trapped in the silence of unanswered questions. Sometimes, the cruelest ending is no ending at all.